everything.
Who are you? Are you rolling?
Yeah.
Okay, so are we?
Big Stella bottle.
Okay, fine.
How's your wife, Stella?
Okay, never mind about that. So we're here today to talk. I invited this gentleman who's very well dressed, unlike me. He actually ironed his shirt, and to talk about issues that you're well known for: demographic replacement in the UK, white identity, and the Muslims, the Muslim threat, and so on. So can we talk about? Obviously, I'm white. I'm a Muslim, and I understand some of these issues. Do you want to perhaps express your concerns freely?
Yeah, no,
gone.
you said it was Paul, yeah?
Paul.
Paul. One thing I'll say, you said things were obvious. What didn't come across obvious was that you was a Muslim. I didn't know that either. Sure, just give me a second. Sit down. Yeah, stand please there. Sorry, no. Let's carry on. Okay. I didn't have any idea that you was a Muslim. No. But the question that you was asking before the camera started rolling was about English identity.
Yeah.
And that's something that...
Or white identity, I said, but English identity will do. Is that the same thing, or is that a different thing?
It's different.
But perhaps we mentioned the John Cleese thing recently. Let's tag it onto that. John Cleese said recently, you aware of that, obviously. He famously said recently that in his view, and the view of many of his friends who come to Britain, London was no longer an English city. And he got an awful lot of flack from the Mayor of London and virtually everyone else saying this is racist, this is a bigot, and so on. And I felt it wasn't actually racist. I thought it was just an observation because.
Well, it didn't.
But
what
do you think?
There's a statue only maybe half a mile from here, and it's of George Orwell. And when he said telling the truth, when it becomes a revolutionary thing, we know we're in trouble. And that is the truth.
Telling the truth in an age of deceit becomes a revolutionary act. Yeah.
Now, being an English nationalist is different to being a white nationalist.
Right.
Because I can't be a French nationalist and be a white nationalist. They're two different things. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Like being a French nationalist, but we happen to both be white. So there's a common denominator between them. And yes, I am I have to be, not that I want to be, but I do feel that we are put into a position where we are having to claim back our identity as an English person. Everyone here, I've had many conversations here, they're like, what is English? What is that? They don't even know. They're living in England, but they don't even know what being English means.
So what does it, that's a good point. What does English mean then for you? Or does it have an overarching characteristic that you can say it's this and this?
No, there's no meaning to it. It's,
right.
You either are or you aren't. There's no why should we have to explain it?
So is it just being white and being born in England?
But this is the irony of our time, is that we have to explain why we're English or how we're English. No, we're just English. So simple. You are the epitome of an Englishman.
Well, I think it's a compliment.
No, it's well, it's not a compliment. It's the truth. Okay. But should we both be in a position why we have to explain it? Is that how much of a position we're put in that we are fighting for our own identity, that because we are becoming.
But in that fighting for the identity you speak of means that you have to fight. You have to fight for something. That's what the fight is about. So what is the fight for that you're fighting for? What is this Englishness or identity that you feel forced to fight for, that you rather not bother with because just who you are? How would you describe it?
Let me just give you an example. I've been a taxi driver in London, central London, for 5 years, but a rickshaw rider. So it means that I'm on a taxi bike, I can go in and out of the alleyways and see what's going on for five whole years in central London. But more importantly, Trafalgar Square. Now, every year on year, I've seen protests, I've seen people celebrating their whatever. One thing that was undermined and that wasn't celebrated, that was like kind of taboo, was St George's Day, was for one day when Eid Mubarak was celebrated. It was 2 weekends in a row, and when the Singapore had their day, it was a whole weekend, it was a whole thing. How is that not saying to the English indigenous people that, you're irrelevant?
So what happened on St George's Day? Nothing happened.
Nothing.
Okay.
No, well, there was like a little.
It was just very small. Right. I mean, the other English festivals, they're not unique to us, but they're certainly owned by the English people traditionally. Christmas, New Year's Eve, and they're huge celebrations. And whenever the Queen has there's a major event in the Queen's life, there's a marriage or coronation, whatever, then Pall Mall, just off Trafalgar Square, and Trafalgar Square are full of people. And these are quintessentially English/British occasions, because she's our Queen, the Queen of England. So I don't think it's fair to say that nothing happens.
I'm sorry, Paul, but you're trying to infiltrate that a festival, a Christian festival, is attached to an English.
Open Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but it's a very English.
Which is not the case. Because
Right.
that's celebrated all over Europe.
All over the world.
All over the world, yeah. Right,
But-
it's
Okay,
down to Europe.
but the
It's
Queen,
Christian centre.
but the Queen Elizabeth II,
like
when she had a
playing devil's
jubilee and
advocate,
so on.
Playing
Okay.
devil's advocate is, you know what you're talking about. You're not stupid. You're far from it. Do you feel that the English identity is being lost and has a really, really big problem?
I think
people
it's
that-
been challenged and deprecated by certain sections of the media. Like when I read The Guardian sometimes, it seems they like taking pot shots at those traditional values, traditional cultural icons that English people have identified with. But I don't think it's true of all society. I think there are some English institutions like the monarchy, for example, the Queen of England, which is very much thriving and highly regarded. And every time there's a baby and a wedding or whatever, and this is part of who we are. So I don't think it's just suppressed. I think it's been challenged because of immigration, which is true. And also amongst, I think there's an idea here that there's English people and there's the rest. English people themselves are divided, I think. You get, if you go on some of the Remainer marches, and some people I know have done this. Yeah, I mean, some of these people are really anti-tradition, anti-British, anti-white or whatever. They're not automatically on your side or our side at all. They're often quite hostile to those very things that you claim. So it's not as simple as them and us. It's sometimes within our own constituency, if you like. There is that division and that argument.
I agree with you. But the difference between us is that we're willing to have the conversation about our differences and what we find kind of troubling as an identity and as a people, because ethnically you can only be, whether we like it or not, it doesn't matter. Any of these guys here, they are born into an ethnicity, whether they like it or not. Yeah? We are born into an English
Especially
identity.
him.
But it's just, it is what it is. Yeah?
Yeah.
But this is an identity that people are flocking to.
Yeah.
To wanting to join, and yet when they join it, they want to change it.
Can I tell you some of the things I find
Do you know what-
troubling?
do you know
No,
what I mean?
I agree. Some of the things I
They
find
want to
troubling.
join it. They talk the language.
Okay.
Yet they're finding it hard to
What things are you worried about losing specifically? I'm coming late.
Yeah, no.
I might have missed it, but what do you mean specifically about English culture that's being lost, do you think?
It's not about it. Well, from my point of view, it's a good question. It is a good question. It's not about it being lost. It's just, can we just keep it?
Specifically?
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not about like, is there characteristics of the English culture that I want to keep?
Yeah.
No, I just want to make sure it's maintained.
What
and that it is.
things?
No, it doesn't matter what things is from my point of view.
Yeah.
It's that it maintains and that it is dominant in England.
How would we know if we don't know what it is specifically we're talking about?
How would you maintain it?
No, but I'm saying, how would you know if it is? How would you know if it is increasing or decreasing if we don't know what it is that we're
Well,
talking
just
about?
look around you. How many Englishmen are here?
Yeah, but is that what you mean specifically?
Well,
You said culture. so
Can I say?
how many Englishmen are sticking up for their culture here?
what is that
But
culture?
it's hard to define specifically
Well,
what an English culture is, though, isn't it? That's what I'm saying.
And this is where we are
It's hard,
lost
it's
as
hard.
a group.
Can I
very simple.
Can I decode what you're saying? I think without.
There's no decoding of it.
Right.
It's like, why
I think
should
it
we
is.
have to explain what our culture is? It's just
Well,
normal.
no.
It's
Just if
being
we're having a
ourselves.
conversation about culture,
No, it's just
important.
us being ourselves.
Yeah. I feel like I can do
So
that.
why should we have to explain ourselves about us being normal?
No, you don't have. We don't have to.
Right.
But
But are we feeling like we do? Because I bloody feel like I have to do from my own people.
I'm all
Can
right.
I just come back? Because I think there are good things and bad things about English culture. The bad things are, no personal attack on you, but the alcoholism, the rampant individualism, the materialism, the godlessness, and that we see. It's not just unique to England, of course, but if this is English culture, I don't want to preserve it. But there are excellent things about English
You
culture.
want to change it?
Yeah, because I think English culture has never been
And that's
static.
what I mean.
It's never
So-
been static. It's
Yeah.
always been evolving and changing.
You know the culture. You know the,
So-
Paul, you
yeah.
know the culture that you
that's the case with
support,
any culture
and the
anyway,
culture that he supports.
What culture
and the
do I
culture
support?
that, well, you tell me, because it sounds very fucking
Very
familiar.
reluctant to
if you wanna
define the
if
culture.
if you want to, because you just said yourself, you want to change this culture. Yeah?
No, I
Yeah,
said
no,
that.
that's your agenda. You just said it, so don't backtrack. You want to change this culture.
Let me explain. There are
And
bad things about
so
our culture,
how about you
which we
just
need
go
to
to a
change.
culture that goes along your line, yeah? So what?
That-
somewhere
that
like
part
Saudi
of
Arabia?
English cu-
yeah?
if-
So where
I
you
don't
can
think that's
dominate
part of
women.
English
Because
culture,
I
by the
guarantee
way.
none of you two have walked into a club.
Exclusivity.
No, yeah,
Never walked into a club.
Never walked into a club and women been knocking at your door.
I'm not sure what that means, but I'm sure I haven't. So come here. It is within
Are you
English.
with them? You want English
Dude,
culture
can I?
to change?
Can I continue this a second? You mentioned George Orwell. You quoted him, and he's perhaps a very good example of an English patriot who was not right wing. He was self-identified as a socialist. He fought for the left wing side in the Spanish Civil War. And he's someone who was very critical of aspects of England, you know, the snobbishness, the class divide, and the hatred of England. He said one of the things that he noticed how much English people love to hate England and speak badly of it. And I think he's right. There are things about our culture. It's not unpatriotic or un-English to say that there are bad things about our culture we should change as English people. Because every culture is a mixture of good and bad, of good and evil. And you don't have to be outside that culture. One of the things about Islam, though, and Muslim presence in this country, which is where it's going to be incendiary now, is that Muslims.
It's always going down to this line.
This is, well, I have to, because that's what I believe. Muslims affirm those very values of tradition, family values, of upholding the rule of law, and so on, which English people as a culture seem to have lost or dissed in the last, say, since the 1960s. So on homosexuality, on family values, on divorce, on
why can't the
abortion,
answer be
for example.
Why can't the answer be Buddhism? Because I know you're getting to your sales.
It could be.
Yeah. So why isn't it?
Well, I'm talking as a Muslim.
But why is it?
I'm
why is it
not.
Islam rather than Buddhism?
I support any traditional religion that upholds decent, traditional values, which were embodied by Victorian England, for example, when Victorian values supported the family values,
Oh, I'm sorry,
and the rule
mate,
of law,
I
and
don't
so
know who's
on.
got hold of you,
It
but
could be
you've been
Hindu.
brainwashed.
Hindus support that as well. Traditional Jews do. Traditional Catholics do. Traditional Muslims, even traditional atheists. There are such things. Would support the goodness of those values that uphold the common good and don't rip it down with individualism and selfishness and licentiousness and immorality. So it's a common good here I'm looking at.
And you're
And
happy
Muslims
for
are not
people-
just the enemy here, they can offer something positive in alliance
So
with
you're admitting
people like
they
you.
are an enemy? Because I wouldn't have said that.
I've
so
never admitted
no,
they're
you
an
just
enemy.
said,
No, he just said they're not.
No, he just
I
said,
didn't say they were an
no,
enemy.
mate.
You're twisting
Pay
my words.
attention.
You're
No,
twisting
pay
my
attention
words.
to what you said. Muslims are not just the enemy. Did you just
I
say
thought he
that?
said
or
not
I
an
did.
enemy. I thought he said.
Not just
No,
an enemy.
no. I mean for you.
No, okay. Did you say it or not?
I did say it.
Yeah.
Right.
So
what
there
I
we
meant
go.
by that was,
Yeah.
from
We're
your
not
point of
just an
view.
enemy.
Yeah, that's what
You've
I
got to
said.
listen to these because
I
these
did say
are
it,
the-
but what
the
I meant by it
brainwashing
was
things, you know what I mean?
that from
So
your point of view,
they're trying to
that
destroy.
they're not.
I don't know who's got hold of Paul. I really don't know who's got hold of you.
Could be
Probably
me.
this scum here.
What's happening
What
between
did
you
you call
two?
it?
then?
No,
Tell me what's
no,
happening.
scum. Scum.
Why? What's happening? What's happening?
I'd like you
And
to
if you-
apologise for abusing him.
Yeah, what's happening?
All right, sorry. Don't make you happy.
That's not very English to abuse people in public.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I
that's
just
all right, that's all
apologise.
right,
Bloody hell. What more do you want? Yeah. So getting on to the point is watch what he says because he wants to twist things. I
I've
hear
seen-
what
I've
he
seen
says.
videos
Yeah.
of him before.
So
My point is that
Muslims are
the
not
people
just the
who are
enemy.
Islamophobic actually can acknowledge there are good positive things about the values that Muslims bring to Britain to emphasise traditional English values. So I'm saying your position can be more nuanced than perhaps it is, which is purely anti at the moment. There are good things about the people you despise
got
that
to-
can
but
actually.
Muslims are not just an enemy. What else are they? Because that's what you said.
No, I didn't say they were an enemy.
Oh.
You're
no.
twisting my words.
No. Hold on, stay with me. You said Muslims are not just an enemy.
I'm speaking from your point of view. I was
now you're quoting me.
rhetorically
Yeah,
giving
yeah,
it from
yeah,
your
yeah,
point of
yeah,
view.
yeah.
That instead of doing just an enemy, there are
They're
also
not just
people
an
who can
enemy.
bring.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a typical.
I'm crediting
Muslim
you with
line.
some subtlety here, being able to understand
It's on
English
camera.
discourse.
It's on camera. You're lying. You're on camera lying.
Okay.
So
Right.
You're not,
Why do you become very defensive
Because
when
I
you're
pick up the
challenged?
truth, you weirdo. Yeah? Because an
Is that the
Englishman
English
thinks I'm
culture
Jewish.
you were
Yeah,
talking about?
he's trying
And
to
you
deny
were
what he said on
reluctant to
camera.
define.
No, I'm not. I'm
Yes,
saying you're
you are.
twisting
Is
the
that the
meaning of
English
what I'm
culture
saying.
you
Oh,
were-
right, all right then.
I don't think
Twisting
it
the
is,
meaning.
honestly. I don't
You're
think it is.
twisting the meaning of what I'm
Okay,
saying.
okay.
All right. So,
tell
is
me.
it possible to have a conversation without abusing people? By the way,
Okay, so
no,
okay.
it's my
Can I
serious
ask-
question.
but
No,
that's
I'm
fair,
asking you a
right?
question.
Yeah, yeah. So can I ask a question?
No, I'm asking
before-
you a question.
Yes,
Is
I
it
agree.
possible to have a conversation without abusing people?
Yes.
Now, can we do that then?
Yes.
Because you seem to want to abuse my friend
Okay.
here. Good.
Okay.
Right.
Can I
Let's
also
not
just
abuse,
say one
let's not
thing
abuse
before
any
you
more
go,
people.
yeah?
Okay. Good.
You said Muslims are not just an enemy.
Yeah.
So can.
I did
whatever you
say
wanna
that.
Say, okay.
Yeah.
So
What I meant by that,
why are they
because you
an
keep
enemy?
on bringing it up, I'm going to have to repeat
So
myself
you are
again.
an enemy.
No, I didn't mean that. What I meant
Oh.
was I was rhetorically taking your position and saying they're not, from your point of view, they're not just an enemy. They're people who affirm positive English values, which we have lost as a people in our lust for gratification, individualism, materialism. So they're not just an enemy for you now. You must acknowledge actually they can be an
I
ally.
don't look at Muslims
That's what I'm
as
saying.
an enemy.
No.
You do.
You will never ever. So you're saying how I perceive things.
But-
I have never looked at Muslims as an enemy.
But you're always
Never.
abusing
But I'm
Muslims.
always. So you're. That's what I mean about.
That's what I've
dominance.
noticed at Speaker's Corner. That's
Yeah. So it's dominance of. You're telling me my opinion. Yeah?
No, I'm going by your behaviour, not by your feelings.
Oh, okay.
But by observing your behaviour.
I never thought. Just for the record, I never thought that Muslims want to dominate anything. Yeah?
So what do you think?
Or in the wrong.
Okay.
But you're telling me that that's what I think, and I never ever looked at Muslims as. Yeah, no, look at me.
You told me that on camera.
I
half
never
an hour
ever.
ago.
No,
So I
I
don't
never
know why
ever.
you're changing the
You will
statement
never
now.
find me on camera saying Muslims are the enemy.
What about off the camera?
You'll never find me on
What,
camera.
really? So what do you think about Islam then?
No, let me just finish and then I'll get back to this. So, Paul, you're on camera saying it. You said Muslims are the enemy. You're on camera saying it.
You're twisting and distorting what I'm saying. I've already
You're on
answered this.
camera.
Okay.
And then tried to blame it on me that I said it.
No. Okay.
I don't think he
it's
said
kind
that.
of
You think he
embarrassing.
said
Why
that?
would he? Why would he say? Why would he say Muslims are the
You
enemy?
ask him. Why are you asking me?
No, because I don't think that is what he said. That's what I'm saying.
That's not what I meant.
I don't think that is.
If you
that
take it in a
No,
very
wait,
literal
listen,
way,
wait,
I meant it in a rhetorical way
Yes.
from your position.
And I can accept
And,
that.
and,
I can
and if
see
you
that.
have
I can
a
accept
reasonably
that.
high IQ,
Yes.
you can get this point.
Yeah.
If you choose to
I
pretend you have a
never
low
ever said
IQ,
that I wouldn't.
Can we move on?
can we move on?
Right,
Anyway,
it's a culture.
right, I'd like to say something. I'd like to say
Because-
something.
no,
I'd like to say
wait,
something now about
okay,
Englishness.
okay. So
It's about English identity.
when you said it, no, because this is an important point. When you said it, and
Yeah.
if you would have turned around and said
Yeah.
to me, it was just a miss of tongue, I didn't actually mean it how it was
No,
said.
it's not miss of a tongue.
What showed very importantly was that you tried to deny it and then flip it back onto me. That's what showed me that you've got an agenda.
Now, moving
If you
on.
would have taken,
Right, now moving on to,
if you would have
the
turned
English-
around and said to me, oh, no,
I've already
I didn't mean it
addressed
like
this
that.
point.
Yeah,
I
of
think
course
you're being
not. Yeah, of course not.
disingenuous.
Come on,
Now,
let's have a conversation.
There is a lot
I
of
think about
stupid idiots.
what is this about Englishness? I think that you are perhaps alluding to, perhaps don't say publicly. The Englishness is to do with white
You don't wanna
identity.
listen, mate. You don't wanna listen.
Well, so I'm speaking. Perhaps you can listen to me. I'm now speaking. Englishness is to do with white identity.
Right.
That's the undercurrent here, that the dare not speak its name issue. And that's what John Cleese was getting at, really. Because if a bunch of people from abroad came here, they're not automatically English in his eyes.
He
It was
used
depending
the words,
on their
the way
de-
it looks, didn't he? So he
their
was
ethnic identity.
talking about
Yeah.
what it looks like, wasn't he?
He's
That's
talking
what
about ethnic identity.
That's what he was talking about.
And I think that this distinction that many of my Muslim friends I've noticed have made, they said that they are British, and I accept they are British, but they're not English.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I accept that difference because they're not ethnically, if they come from, say,
Yeah.
I don't know, Pakistan or whatever.
Like a
they're not-
nationality
they're-
rather than
yeah,
an ethnicity.
but they're
yeah.
part of the nation of the UK
Yeah.
because they're British.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I don't have a problem with that distinction. But which is why I kind of agree with John Cleese's observation. It seems to be an obvious point. If you go around London, I mean, I get a bus here every Sunday
Yeah.
down the Edgware Road, and it's very unusual for me to hear anyone who's speaking English. Now, this wasn't the case 20 years ago when I used to come down, but it is the case now, so things have changed. So I can't just pretend they're all English people. It's not English people. They are from Yemen or Syria or wherever. They may be UK passport holders, but they're not English because they're not part of my history. The common culture and history, or like you put Queen and country, whatever you put it, that we all share. They don't have
I never
that
said
history. No, I say
So
that.
full of shit, you know that. You're such
Right.
what you are is you're a sellout to the English.
I thought you weren't going to abuse people. We agreed that you
I'm
weren't
not
going to
abusing
people.
people.
No, you said I'm so
abusing
full of
you.
shit. That's abuse.
Yeah, no,
You
no.
can't, an
You're a
adult,
liar.
agree with people respectfully. You want to abuse me, and that shows that you have lost
I'm
the
a
argument.
victim. I'm a victim. No, because We tried to have look for recognition. We tried to have a conversation. You won't look at me. You won't have a conversation. You lied. It's on camera several times. So you want to turn it around.
Do you want to discuss what I've just mentioned about
No, I don't
the,
care.
ethnic
You're a
identity?
liar.
He agrees with you.
No, he's a liar. He doesn't care about English and identity.
I do,
He's
of
a
course I do, of course I do.
Muslim wronger.
You can be Muslim and English.
You can be a Muslim.
How do I know that? I'm me, that's how I know it. I mean, I don't have to argue with myself. Being Muslim believes you believe in one God without partners, associates, and you believe that God has sent messengers and prophets
Cool, I'm
to
so
people,
interested.
Jesus, and so on. Notice the lack of respect he shows. So it's quite easy.
I want to hear your hadith. Tell me how you come to Islam. How did an Englishman come to Islam? Tell me
really
it was
wanna
that
hear?
gorgeous girl looking at you with two eyes, and that's all you could see down fucking Edgware
You
Road.
don't know me, do you? You
Tell
don't
me.
know me, do
Tell
you?
me.
But he has an idea about everyone.
No, I'm laughing because you don't know me.
No.
And people who do know me are laughing as well.
Tell you.
Because you have no idea.
Tell me how you came to the truth.
Well, do you really want to hear? Are you going to? Okay,
No,
fine,
no,
you've got the
listen.
story.
I'm curious.
I was a committed Christian at university at the time, studying theology, and I knew there were major problems with the Christian religion. Much of it was true, but some real serious problems. For example, did Jesus think he was God? And I came to the conclusion that objective historical inquiry suggests that Jesus didn't think he was Yahweh. Actually, he saw himself as a prophet and a Messiah. And at the same time, I was becoming quite Islamophobic, actually. I live up the road, and I saw the Arabs coming further and further north into my area where I live up the road here. And I decided to actually go to my local mosque and talk to these Muslims. What are they really about? Are they really hostile to civilized values, to our civilization? So I went to Regent's Park Mosque, up the road here, and for 3 months I sat down with Muslims and I argued with them and I learned, and I discovered something I never knew existed, and it's called Islam. Real Islam.
What did you argue with them?
Not,
What did you argue with
Oh,
them
about religion.
Because you was a Christian.
Theology, about who was Jesus, the Bible, who was Muhammad, and I discovered the life of Muhammad as well, peace be upon him. An amazing human
So
being.
did you question Muhammad when you was arguing with him?
Of course I did.
What did you question about him?
Well, everything. How can he... Right.
Everything. No, but give us an example.
What I discovered was, and this is...
No, I'm asking a simple question. What did you ask about Muhammad at the
One of the things
Mosque or
that the
Regent's
difference
Park
between
Mosque?
my understanding of Jesus and Muhammad
You're
was...
not going to
that-
answer. This is what I mean
I'm trying to
about
answer.
these fake converts, fake people.
And more abuse, you see. You can't
Yeah, no,
just
because I'm
disagree.
talking to the camera because I'm trying to
There's
ask
no need to be
you.
abusive.
I'm not being.
You
so this
are.
is
You're calling me
abusive.
fake. That's abusive.
So merely asking a question
Let me
is
answer.
now abusive.
I was trying to answer it when you interrupted me, actually. I was actually answering it when you...
What dialogue did you have at Regent's Park Mosque?
Right, let me give you an
What
example.
arguments, in your words, in your words?
When you finished, are you ready to let me speak now? Good. One of the problems I had was Jesus never, according to my understanding, never commanded an army. And Muhammad clearly was in charge of an army, and he went into battle, he went into jihad. And,
So you're a violent person.
how can... therefore he was a violent person.
No, so you're a violent person. You follow violent people. Rather than a peaceful man, you follow violent people.
You asked me a serious question about
Yeah,
the
no,
kind of issues I
you
had
just said it
10
yourself.
years
No,
ago,
no, you
and now
just
you're
go-
saying I'm a violent person because...
So you follow violent people like Muhammad? Yeah? Rather than Jesus who was
trying to
a peaceful
take you
man.
seriously, sir. I'm
Yeah.
trying to take you
Yeah.
seriously.
You're a joke. That's what you are.
Can you
let
answer
him
the
finish
question,
a
man?
sentence
You
without
asked him a question, he's
interrupting,
answering your
So
question.
Well,
it,
let him
it was
keep
it was a
digging and digging his
contrast,
own
I
grave.
saw
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
between Jesus as the peacemaker and Muhammad as the guy who commanded armies into battle. And what I began to appreciate through my discussions and my reading was the very different context in which Jesus was living his life under the Roman Empire and where Muhammad lived his life amongst the pagan tribes in Mecca in the 7th century. And indeed, revered biblical figures like Moses and others also did command armies, and no Christian says, oh, well, Moses is not a man of God because he commanded an army. And in fact, Jesus also commands armies. If you look in the book of Revelation, he wipes out bloodbath of a third of the human race gets wiped out. And also, if you believe Jesus is God, of course, he also was the God in the Old Testament who committed the genocides. So, I mean, there are many reasons. It was principally the contextual difference of these two guys. So, Jesus wasn't there to bring Tawheed that had never been preached before. He was there in the succession of the prophets of Israel to remind them to come back to the worship of one God alone. Whereas Muhammad was born in a context of polytheism, where people were pagans and didn't believe in life after death and believed in many, many deities, and they committed shirk and so on. And he was viciously persecuted by the Qurayshi tribes. It's very boring, but to us it's a lovely story because it tells us about our beloved Prophet. May God's blessings and peace be upon him. It seems my colleague here has walked away, which is a shame because I was hoping to have a mature discussion, Englishman to Englishman. Are you an Englishman, sir?
No, I'm an Irishman, but English will do, yeah, no.
What do you call yourself?
I'm a hybrid.
What do you mean to be an honorary Englishman? No, so just finish off. Well, I was trying to have a conversation with this chap about English identity and the challenges it faces and you know, the pluses and the negatives about being English. Oh, you're English, aren't you?
Yeah.
I'm terribly sorry to overlook you.
I'm similar to my man,
Part of Ireland where your heritage comes from.
Oh, you're one of those Englishmen who's an Irish guy. I see. Yeah, I know those
There's a
English
lot
guys.
of cross-pollination been going on over the
There
Irish
is,
Sea, isn't there? Yeah. But do you sometimes get torn between loyalty?
Yeah.
I do,
Especially,
I do.
100%. Yeah. So
You know, to the point that I even signed up online for that AIM2, you know, the new Republican split. They got 3, I think, in the last elections.
Yeah.
Because they were saying that, you know, they said we want to go back to 1879 or 1789, where Protestants can be involved, the Anglo-Irish and all that. I thought the only peace that's going to come, I think, eventually will come from some strand of republicanism, but not the Sinn Féin. You know, so how do you kind of... Is it your grandfather or your dad?
Are there any English people here? Are you English, sir? No, you're not.
But the point that we was talking about before...
Anyone
was about
identifies as
culture,
English?
about English culture, but Irish culture I feel much easier to sort of define or recognise.
Well, not really.
Rather
This
than
is about
my
the
man
John
in,
Cleese thing about
but
English things in London.
Very angry man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Come take over everything from your family.
Come, man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV. Listen.
There you go. This is our prophetic
Because of the
Englishman, please. If any Englishman is watching this, please be aware of this country. This is what's happening. It's not just him. It's many people behind closed doors that are also thinking like this scum.